that brings us to our 3-point stance presented by your Mercedes. Your first stance, the Eagles have a group of top-tier skill players. ESPN today did a ranking of the top skill groups. We're talking receivers, tight ends, and running backs. And they had the Eagles at 8. How would you judge their judgment?
Yeah, it's a pretty good group, Taryn. I mean, you start off with the acquisition of A.J. Brown, adding him to a receiver group that had Devontae Smith, they had Quez Watkins, and then you go ahead and say Zach Pascal, too. Don't forget about him. That's a nice add as the number 4 receiver. Dallas Goedert's already a top 5 tight end in the league. And then even the running backs. I mean, you have a group with Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott. That's a very good group. Now, a lot of this obviously is dependent on Jalen Hurts, making sure these guys get the ball and making sure the offense runs the way Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen wanted to run. But on paper, and we're doing a lot of this offseason, on paper, it's a pretty good group.
Yeah, well, as a man who's essentially from the house of learned doctors when it comes to the game of football, and by that I mean one of the members of our Eagle Eye podcast, in your opinion, how dynamic will this offense be this year?
It has the potential, and that's the key word, the potential.
The potential on paper.
On paper to be very good. Now, you have to remember, too, though, this is pretty much the same offense as last year plus A.J. Brown. The big thing here is how much better is Jalen Hurts going to be, not just in his 3rd year in the league, not just his 2nd year as a full-time starter, but his 2nd year in the same offense, something he hasn't had since he was in high school. And really, on the other side of that, Nick Sirianni hasn't had the same quarterback to work with 2 years in a row for a long time either. So it's exciting knowing that they have the potential, but he needs to take a step forward. All the pieces are around him for this offense to hum.
All right, so let's move on to your second stance. I want to talk about Kyler Murray. Your stance is he won't live up to this contract because the Cardinals quarterback, today he signed a 5-year deal worth $230 million, $160 million of that guaranteed. Living up to that in any form is an incredibly tall task, Dave.
Yeah, we're talking about $46 million a year, Taryn.
Crazy money.
It's crazy money, and right now he's not worth that. They're paying him on projection, and look, he's a good quarterback. He's been a 2-time Pro Bowler, was the top overall pick a few years ago. He's a good quarterback. Right now, though, if you're ranking all the top QBs in the league, he's not a top 10 QB. He's probably in that 12, 13, 14, 15 range, which means he's above average, sure, but they didn't pay him like an above average quarterback. They paid him like one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and right now, he is not that. The problem is the way the contracts in the league have kind of exploded, they almost were forced into paying him this much.
Yeah, it's crazy because you go from above average to above Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes on that list. That's insanity. Which, I mean, that plays right into your third stance. Jalen Hurts is a man who has a real chance to make quite a bit of cash.
He does, and this is the theme of this offseason. Everything is around Jalen Hurts. And it's really like a different way to ask the same question we've been asking for months now. Can he prove himself to be the franchise quarterback of this team? Because if he can, yeah, he's going to get paid, Taryn. You look around the league, it's amazing to see the way these quarterback contracts have gone. I mean, right now, there are just 3 quarterbacks getting annually in the 20s. There are 5 in the 30s. There are now 8 quarterbacks, including Kyler Murray, getting over $40 million a year. Now, I don't think he's going to end up getting that much money, but to think that he's going to take a contract, if he proves himself to be a franchise quarterback in, 23, 24 million, it's going to take more than that. If he plays really well this year, it'd be a good problem to have if it's a clear-cut thing, but you do have to worry about what if it's in the middle? What if he plays better, but he's not an elite quarterback, and now you're in a situation where you think, all right, it might be time to extend him, but has he really earned that, and how much better will he get?
Well, here's the other question when it comes to that. Do you think he could be convinced to lock himself into a quarterback who he doesn't view as top tier? I know in the summertime it's typically when we have this elite, not elite quarterback discussion that's now feels like it's been had every summer for decades. Yeah. But when it comes to actually locking into someone behind center, I mean, is Howie a guy who you think long-term could be locked into somebody who he doesn't judge potentially as elite? It's
really tough because they thought they had that guy in Carson Wentz, and they paid him. And, honestly, if Carson had continued on the trajectory he showed when they signed him, that deal would look like quite a bargain right now. Obviously, it didn't work out. It blew up in their face quite a bit, but that's what they want to do. They want to kind of get ahead of it as much as they can and pay these guys before they have to, and that you kind of set the market that way. But I don't think there's going to be any discount for quarterbacks in this league, and not even Jalen Hurts. So it's a really tough question, and it kind of adds another layer to this. Is he the guy? Is he not the guy? Because if you think he's the guy, then you got to break the bank for him, and he might not be worth what you have to pay.
So forgive me, but on this steaming hot day, I want to put you on a bit of a hot seat. Predict Jalen Hurts' next contract for me, if you could.
It's a tough one. I think he's probably going to command $30 million a year.
Wow,
that's just the going rate of quarterbacks. I mean, Kyler Murray's like the 12th best quarterback in the league. Jalen Hurts is probably 17th.
Right.
It's not that. It's a big gap in terms of play style, but not in their standing in the league. And when you look at the way these contracts have gone,
anything that he needs to do specifically to hit that number that you just said.
You got to be a better passer. He has to improve in certain areas. I think throwing with anticipation for me would be the biggest area. Decision making needs to get better because he has some traits that you love. I mean, his ability to extend plays, his ability to run, all that stuff matters, but it doesn't matter as much if you can't be an adequate passer. So a lot of it's not just the accuracy numbers. It's hitting a guy in stride on a slant in step is a lot different than hitting him behind for a 10-yard gain. It goes for 50. So there's little things in his game that need to improve. I think they will improve, but again,
especially when
how
it
much?
comes to just sheer arsenal of weapons, you add A.J. Brown to the mix, and that takes some pressure off of Devontae Smith. And we'll see what Dallas Goedert can do, and we'll see what Jalen Hurts can do, and how much money he can rack up in that bank account.